We all want to be happier, but how do we get there? First, we start by realizing happiness is not a destination. Being happy consists of micro action steps every single day. I'm your host, Brittany King, and I'm here to guide you along the way. Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome back to the Positively Real podcast. I'm your host and coach, Brittany King, and we're tying all of this stress less month together. If you haven't been following along, I've dedicated the month of April to understanding what stress is, how to regulate your nervous system, to manage stress, what stress does to the nervous system and why they're related. I've also talked about stress in relationships because I feel like all the coaching that I do, it is at some point we have coached on relationships and how stressful relationships can be, both our relationship with ourselves, but then also just the relationship with the world and just relationship with anything in general. And so I wanted to record this final episode to kind of tie together everything I've talked about. I'm not going to define stress or go into like those details. You can obviously listen to those episodes if you haven't listened to them already. But what I want to do is take all of the little tidbits and the techniques that I've talked about throughout this series and put them in one episode. So you can come back to this and use this as a resource to help you build your resilience menu, your stress resilience menu. And if you aren't doing this, I highly recommend doing it because, as I've talked about it, as we all know, stress is just a part of life. It's a part of being a human, and it's a necessary part of life. It's not going anywhere. And it seems like as we get older, the stresses that we experience tend to feel a little bit bigger. And so I really want to help you transform your relationship with stress and really accept that stress is going to be a part of life. And how I can help you is by giving you the resources and the tools and the suggestions. But the truth is, this will only work if you do it, and it only works if you believe that it works. The belief is everything. If you don't think these techniques are going to help you manage your stress, then they're not going to. Like, you're going to do them, but they're not going to be as impactful. I don't want you to just do things to do them because some gal on a podcast suggested it, or, all the wellness gurus, or you listen to the Huberman podcast and it said that you need to do this. Like, you really want to understand why it's so important for you and and it's unique to you. So I really want to help you build resilience. I want to help you build a resilience menu, and I want to give you resources so you can start building it. So when you do face stressful situations, or how you perceive to be stressful situations, you just have go-to strategies that are going to help you work through it versus take you out. Because that's what happens with stress. When we have accumulation of stress, when it builds up, it's only a matter of time till it just knocks us down. And I want to help make that less of a theme for you in your life, because this happens to all of us. It happens to me too. When I'm not taking care of myself, when I'm letting the stress build up, one thing happens and I feel like I have such a harder time bouncing back. I want to help build the flexibility and resilience within you so you can handle the inevitable ups and downs of just being a human being. Okay. So we're tying together stress reduction, resilience, and just practical strategies that you can start applying today. Remember, belief is everything. You have to believe that they work. And in order to do that, you can't just do it once. You can't just do it twice. You have to commit to doing it. You have to commit to making the change. Now, one of the things that I find so helpful with managing stress is really transforming my story around stress. So there's the things that happen, right? It's the circumstances, the things that we cannot control. And then we have a story about it. And those are our thoughts. And we tell the story, and that's what creates the stress. And so first you want to acknowledge the stress story, right? Like this is my perspective, this is how it's making me feel. A lot of times the emotions that we tie to stress are panic, um, anxiety, overwhelm, fear, worry, all of that stress may really manifest in that way. And so you just want to pay attention. Like, even if you don't know what your stress story is, you know how you feel first. And so you want to check in with that feeling and then ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Going to tell you the stress story. And then that's going to determine your behaviors, which typically are not the most helpful behaviors, and then ultimately create a result that you don't want. So first you want to see how that's playing out for you. Then you want to look at your stress story and be like, this could be one perspective, but let me look at it from a different perspective. And that different perspective could be something that's way more logical, also um, helpful, because that's what at the end of the day, like stress is just sending you information. And so you just want to look at your stress story. Is it helping you? Is it a helpful story, or is it really making you feel helpless, hopeless, disempowered? And if it is, then you have the ability to change that story. You have the ability to look at it from a different lens. You have the ability, you have the authority to do that by choosing to, by having the awareness, by making the choice. And this is so important because a lot of times the stress stories that we're telling ourselves, it's not reality. It's a dirty lens. It's like we haven't taken our glasses off and we haven't cleaned them. We're looking at it through this skewed lens. So pausing and being like, this could be true. What else could be true? And that question really helps reframe that stress story. And then it really offers you a different emotion, which will offer different actions, which will ultimately create different results. I think about how stress manifests in my life, and a lot of the stress that I experience is not about stuff that's happening in the present moment. It's stuff that I haven't resolved necessarily. Like, yeah, it's unprocessed stress from the past. And so something happens and it triggers me in the present moment. And it's not really what's happening in the here and the now. It's something that happened in my past that's giving me an offer. It's an invitation for me to process it, for me to look at it differently, to complete the stress cycle. And so that's like where I'm finding my stress to show up the most. As far as like day-to-day stress, because of these techniques, I really manage it well. I do. I really manage well. And I'm also really good at stress reduction. And what do I mean by stress reduction? Like if something is stressing me out in my life, I'm going to just remove it. Like I'm just going to remove it. Now, obviously, it's unrealistic to think that we can remove all of the things in our life that cause stress. That's when we can transform our stress story around it, like the things that you cannot change. But there are certain things that you can change that if it keeps causing you stress, you just want to look, can I remove this from my life? Now, this is different than circumstance hopping, right? Getting out of a circumstance because it makes you uncomfortable. There are certain things that if it's causing you so much stress and you have to coach yourself and work on it day in, day out, like take it out of your life. Like just remove it. Like if you can. Obviously, there's certain things that you can't remove, but like truly, like if someone's talking to me about the same thing over and over again and they have control over it, I'm like, just remove that, remove it. Now there's reduction, but then there's also management. And this is really how you build your resilience. And so the management really comes down to having these techniques that will, over time, really help you be more flexible to adversity in life. So first, let's talk about ways to to approach stress reduction. So number one is just mindfulness, like and just having awareness. What are the things that cause you stress in your life and can you remove them? If you can't, how can you change your story around those things? And I find that meditation is a very helpful, useful tool to do that. Now, I will say through my own personal journey that meditation has been helpful for me in mindfulness, but I find that doing breath work before I meditate has taken it to the next level. So in these past couple episodes, there's obviously a recurring theme with breath work, and there's two types of breath work. There's breath work for transformation, which is like the big emotional release and the shifts that we feel, these insights, downloads that we have. And then there's breath relaxation techniques. And I find that when I can do the breath techniques to help me relax, whether that's doing the box breathing, doing slow inhales through my nose and full exhale through my mouth, like those deeply grounding breath techniques before meditation really do set me up to go into a deeper meditation that helps me kind of have a more objective look at what's happening, to have a more space from it, to be more of a witness. So you can kind of see how these tie together. They can be done individually, they can be done separate, but I do find that when they're together, it's even more powerful. And then you add in a layer of journaling to help give yourself space of why you're feeling the way you feel, why you're feeling stress, what that stress is trying to tell you. And like that combination really helps reduce stress. Like it just, there's no denying it. And there's all this research to back it. And it's so simple, you guys. It is so simple. And you might be listening saying, yeah, Brittany, tell me something I don't know. You might know this, but are you doing it? Have you given it enough try? Have you given it enough practice? Now, I'm not saying like you have to do this for, 30 minutes every day, but even just 5 minutes makes a huge difference and it'll teaches you how to be more responsive to life. The other thing that is really important for stress reduction is physical activity, movement, and it's any kind of movement. You don't have to do a high intensity fitness class. You don't have to do spin. You don't have to do anything that you don't like to do, but just something to move your body. Again, the research is there. You can find all the research studies in the world. There is so much science to back the benefit of physical activity and reducing stress. I know when I'm like, my stress level is so much higher than it normally is. I just need a good workout and some space for myself to bring my baseline back down because that's what we want to do. Stress is a normal part of life, but then we get stuck in the stress response, and then any little thing is going to set us off. Where when we can reduce stress, it just brings our baseline back down. The other thing that helps is nourishing your body. How are you taking care of your body? What are you putting into your body? Because when you feel like crap and you eat like crap, the stress increases and you're starting to think about, all these other things in your life aren't going well. Whenever, like, I notice this whenever I don't eat the way that I usually eat, I just start spiraling into all these other areas. And I find that, like, when I take care of my body and I nourish it really well, that doesn't happen. And that's not a coincidence. That's because when we feel like garbage and we treat our bodies like garbage, we're going to have garbage thoughts and it's going to just spiral. When you treat your body well, you give it proper nourishment, you give it proper sleep, you give it proper water, and truly, that's really all we need to do. Um, it just creates such a different mindset. It truly does. Now, these are the things that work for me. And again, I'm not the first person to share these. Everybody talks about it. But what I really want to offer you is to find what works best for you and when it works best. There's all these different schools of thoughts of when to do these things and how to do them. And you just got to figure out what works for you. I would always try to like match what I thought my mentors were doing. And I'd like kind of romanticize what their strategies were. And it was like making me in like, I was like all or nothing perfectionist thinking of like, I'm either going to do it this way or not at all. And since I've dropped that, I've just found what worked for me. It's like today, for example, got my morning meditation in, and then I didn't get to do my journaling. My daughter woke up and instead of like throwing it out the window, we went outside and she played. And then I just wrote my morning gratitudes. And it was like different than I normally would do it, but I still did it. It wasn't the way that I thought it would be done, but I still got done and I still got the benefit of it because I even had so much gratitude for just this moment of like being outside in the sunshine, watching my daughter play. So it even just like, again, like you can lower your cortisol real fast. Like, it's like it gives you stress to like not get to do your routine and then getting to like shift into gratitude. You just feel the stress leave your body truly when you start paying attention in this way. So those are stress reduction techniques. Now I want to talk about stress resilience because again, stress is just a part of life. And stress resilience means being flexible to whatever life throws you. Resilience is truly about the ebbs and flows of our emotional state and our emotional being. And it really plays to this idea of like our nervous system is meant to be flexible. It's meant to ebb and flow. We're not meant to just be in one state. We're going to be in different states. And so the more that we can play around with this flexibility, the more resilient that we're going to be. So I find that the best way to build stress resilience is number one, emotional regulation. Like have strategies to help you regulate your emotions, to self regulate. This is key. Can you learn? Do you have practices in place to help you manage and regulate? That's the first step because, again, you have a stress response. You get an email from an angry client. And instead of going like into this like hypervigilant state or freaking out, you have the moment and then you have the strategy to bring you back down. The reason why this is so important is because we don't know what's going to set us off. But when we have tools and strategies to pull from, we use the little bit of cognition that we have available to us in a stress response and an activation to pull that resource to bring us back down into a state of equilibrium. So, doing these techniques, having these emotional regulation strategies, and practicing them regularly. If you're practicing them when you're having a stress response, it's too late. We in my nervous system training, we talk about training days versus game days. And when we think about a sports team, the training days, the way that the days that they practice, there's so many more practices than there are game days. And so the more you practice, you know what plays to call. You know which thing is going to work for you. Not every technique is going to work for every situation. They're all going to be unique to you and whatever you're experiencing. So being able to call that, like, oh, this works for me here, this works for me here, was really going to help build that emotional resilience, that stress resilience. And the other thing that I find to be really helpful to build resilience is being able to accept that change is a part of life. And the way that we do this is just by checking in with ourselves. Can you check in with yourself daily? Can you check in with yourself weekly? Can you check in with yourself monthly or maybe even just quarterly? Start there. Having these regular check-ins will help you make adjustments moving forward. How is my stress levels? How am I feeling? What's my self-care look like? How am I taking care of myself? Where's my cup at? All of these questions can be done very simply in a short period of time. And just those tiny little tweaks will make a huge difference in how you handle day-to-day stress. And then, of course, my favorite strategy is just gratitude. Gratitude is at the root of our whole being. Can we be grateful for what we currently have? Can we be grateful for the things that we don't have yet? And really sitting in that gratitude and not just like rushing through it, like really sitting in it. It is the antidote to so many of our other challenges that we face. Now, it's not to like wash over, to gaslight ourselves, to spiritually bypass challenges, but we can be grateful for the challenges. We can be grateful for where we're at, the things that we're going through, knowing that it's going to make us stronger, knowing that it's going to make us more resilient. And if you don't have a gratitude practice yet, this is an invitation to just try it. Give yourself 21 days to just see what happens when you do it. Just be amazing what might come up. Okay, so let's talk about ways to implement this. Because, like, yes, you've heard all of these things before, but are you actually practicing them? Are you actually implementing them? So, what I really want you to think about is start small, start simple. That might be starting to make boundaries within yourself. Like, how do I want to show up in the world? And how do I take care of myself? That is where we want to start to manage our stress in our day to day, set boundaries within ourselves. What are our own limits? The other thing is set up some um, time for yourself. Like literally, like it's the most important thing on the calendar. So you can have these regular check-ins. Start with 5 minutes. If that's not possible, start with 3 minutes. And over time that will grow and grow and be flexible with that. Don't fall into the rigid, I have to have this time. And if I can't do it and like, getting kind of crazy about it, just allow yourself to have some flexibility, knowing that it's going to be fluid because you're a fluid human being. but giving yourself those those spaces for yourself, even if it's small, because eventually those will grow. And then obviously just prioritize self-care. I know everybody talks about it, and it's not a nice to have, it's necessary. It is so necessary for managing your stress. And the more that you can fill your cup up, the more that you can show up for the people in your life, the less stress you will have. So much of our stress is from the external pressure that comes internal, and we put this internal pressure. And that internal pressure is what takes us away from who we really are and how we want to show up in the world, and the people that we want to connect with. And the more that you can really fill that need yourself, the easier it will be for you to connect with other people, because you will have something to give. People will get this version of yourself that you want to offer. And if you don't have a self-care plan yet, just start small. Start by blocking off that time for yourself, and then just decide, what am I going to do during that time? Am I just going to sit in peace and quiet and not talk to anyone? Am I going to read a book? Am I going to journal? Am I going to color? The self care, like taking a break, is not meant to be stimulating. It's meant to be a space for you to connect with yourself. Now, I'm all for, fun, stimulating activities that can also be a form of self care. But if you're at that level where your stress is really high, what you really want to do is think about things that really help you just connect within. And that's going to help you build that resilience, and it's going to help you, you know, down the road when life will inevitably throw you a curveball. We do these things now for those curveballs. We don't know when the curveballs are going to happen. Sometimes we can tell, but for the most part, we have no idea when they're going to happen. So I just want you to think about this as just being proactive. It's not just this nice, fluffy thing. This is actually something that is going to help you be more of who you want to be in the world, allow you to offer yourself in a way that you want to offer yourself, while maintaining your own boundaries, while take caring your well-being. That's how we're going to make a difference in the world. Truly. We got to manage our stress so we can make a difference in this world. Okay. That's what I have for you, my friend, this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know when you start implementing these strategies. Remember, you have to believe that they're going to work, and don't write them off because they're so simple. Don't write them off because people talk about them. There's a reason why everybody's talking about them, but it's the difference between knowing it and doing it. Start small, understand why you're doing it, and just know that the more that you do this, the easier it will become, the less reactive you'll be, the more responsive, and the more you can live your life. All right, that's it, my friend. Until next time, remember to love yourself, own your happiness, and let your light shine, because you are so worthy of it. Until next time.